How y'all doing? My name is Alonzo Henrys, and I am a 20-year-old hybrid athlete, or trying to be. So this past weekend, I attempted a sub 25K, and let me tell y'all, I probably did not train as much as I should have, but we won't get into that. I'm gonna give y'all break down my numbers. I just copped this watch about like a couple weeks ago, maybe like 2 3 weeks ago, and I've been training for about a month. I do have previous running experience with 5Ks, 10Ks sometimes, and I have attempted a half marathon, but not like on the books, no race, no nothing, just on my own. And literally, I did not prepare for that either, not as well as I should have. But getting to the race, um, my preparation for about 2 to 3 weeks was I was trying to run a 5K almost every day. Um, I ran about I ran about 30 minutes in total. Some days I would run a little over a 5K just to, get my endurance up a little bit, know that I got a little more gas in the tank. So for my 5Ks, I would typically stick to about a 7:30 pace for my easier days, and then for my harder days, I would probably stick around a 6:40 pace, maybe 6:30, until about a week out. I just chat GPT to I don't have anybody that I know that runs like this, so I had little to no information. ChatGPT pretty much had me on a program where 2 days of the week I was running two easy runs, and then 2 days out of the week I was running just about uh, a 5 to 6 mile long run, and then I was also doing one run where I would start off at a mile for about an 8 minute pace, and then I would do a minute 40 at race pace, which is kind of like a working set. So I do a minute 40 at a 6:35, and then I would do a minute 40 at my warm up pace, which was an 8 minute mile, and then I did 4 to 6 sets of that. I think that honestly helped me more than anything else, more than endurance, more than the long run, more than just trying to do a 5K at the pace that I wanted, because that kind of had me in race pace for small durations of time, but long enough to kind of get me familiar with the pace so I could kind of get in tune with that and not need to look at my watch as much and just be able to get into that pace. Now, getting into, why I'm doing this, I honestly just like running. I work out a little bit, well, not a little bit, but probably 5 to 6 days a week. I do push pull legs, nothing too crazy. Hopefully, you guys can tell, I've been in the gym a little bit. But yeah, I just really wanted to see if I was capable of it, because, I watch a lot of people like Nick Bear, a lot of the hybrid athletes that are on YouTube here, and they run crazy amount at crazy speeds, 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and I just really enjoy running. I started doing 5Ks, 2016, so about 10 years ago. I actually did the race that I'm gonna show you guys 10 years ago today, and I'll show you guys my time, and that is nothing impressive. I think I was like 10 years old. Um, but yeah, so I just really wanted to test myself, see if I was able to lift, maintain my size. I'm about 6'2", 6'3", 195. Fluctuates. 6'3" with shoes on, we'll say. But yeah, so I really just wanted to test my limits and see if I can maintain my weight and, maybe build up a little more size while also being able to run, crazy distances, hopefully train for a marathon. I would like to get in the triathlon environment as well, but that costs hella money. We've seen a lot of stuff online, bikes cost a couple grand to a couple $100. You got the little tight skin suit, never mind, the training, the cost of the event. And I'm gonna be completely transparent, I'm a full-time worker, the 9 to 5. So, you know, not that money's tight, but I don't know if I want to be spending thousands of dollars on something. We'll see how this content stuff works out, and maybe I'll get there. But yeah, so getting into race day. Race day was, you know, a little anxious. I woke up about 9 o'clock. The race started at 1, and the clocks literally just changed that morning. So it was not ideal. You know, I didn't really get too much sleep, probably about 6 hours, 30 minutes. You know, I'm a big advocate on sleep. Don't get me wrong. I sleep 8 to 9 hours any other day, but this day felt like Christmas. I know you guys can relate to that. Being a kid, being up all night, can't sleep. You just want to wake up and the day to start. So I woke up about 9 o'clock, had some yogurt, had some cantaloupes. I'm a big advocate on honey. I don't know if you guys know about that, but it's a good source of carbs, I've heard. And, you know, not natural sugars as in like fruits, but natural sugars as in, not too many additives, and it's not a gush or anything like that. So I feel like it keeps you kind of maintained, gives you a little energy. And I'm not a coffee person, so I can't do any caffeine in the morning, no pre-workout. I'm not that type of person. But yeah, that's kind of what I just ate. I tried carving up the day before. I eat pretty clean. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I eat ground turkey, jasmine rice, cantaloupe, Greek yogurt, no sugar, no fat, low calories, and I don't really cheat that often. But this weekend I cheated. I cheated mostly because I knew that I needed some food in my system, and my diet really only consists of a cup of rice, about 4 to 8 ounces of ground turkey per meal, and I eat 3 of those a day. So, I definitely do not get enough carbs from those meals. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go. Got myself a little burrito. I think I had a chicken Caesar wrap as well that day, and just kind of get some bread in my stomach. Have some food to sit on, so I'm not starving for the race, but I'm also not overeating before the race. So getting into the beginning of the race, probably about an hour before the race, I showed up at my buddy's house right down the road. It was a huge race. It's in the town of Putnam, and this thing happens every single year. We had about 1,000 people participating in the race, and probably about 3 to 4 thousand people at the race. So the town was packed. There was no parking, so my buddy lives up the road. Parked my truck at his house. I did warm up before the race. I think I should have maybe done a mile more, but I ran about 3/4 of a mile at an 8 minute pace, and I did sprint a little bit at race pace, but I didn't. I was just nervous of gassing myself out, especially since I didn't get too much sleep the day before. So I was a little nervous on that end, like energy wise, and the nerves were hitting me, so I didn't want to, you know, overcompensate with the warm up and not have any gas for the actual race. So we get down there. I'm gonna show you guys how many people were probably over there in the area I was in. Caught up with a lot of people that I haven't seen in a while. This is the town that I used to live in, so it was good seeing some friendly faces. Old teachers, classmates. I just graduated from high school a couple years ago, so I'm not that old. I'm not that old where this is kind of out the crazy. But I did see a lot of good people that I haven't seen in a while. Some coworkers. Thankfully, my job actually pays for good majority of the races that I do, which is unheard of. But shout out them. So yeah, get to the race. See a couple people I was going with. Warming up a little bit, stretching, all that. Just trying to get in the right mindset just before the race. And don't get me wrong, the nerves were hitting me. I was like, yo, I'm trying to go sub 20. People are asking me what I'm trying to shoot for. I'm like, throwing out sub 20 like it was a nuclear bomb, and it was crazy, you know. But yeah, the nerves did kind of calm down once, they started doing some of the announcements and kind of getting people where they need to be. We did have the pace markers where the closer you are to the finish, or the closer you are to the start, I'm sorry, is about a 5:30 to 6 minute pace. And then it was an 8 minute pace marker, which was probably about 40 yards back. because mind you, there were 1,000 people here. So then there was the 10 minute and then the 12 minute, about 60 yards back, because we do have a lot of walkers for this event, and some slower people. It's a small town, so we don't have a bunch of people going out here for some crazy numbers. This is not a crazy event where we got 1% athlete 1% athletes out here trying to PR. So I placed myself roughly about the 5:36 minute pacers, mostly to get ahead of some of the people and to let them pass me so eventually I can pass them. Because a lot of people start off way too fast, me included. You know, as you can see, I'm going to show you guys right here, set it up, show you guys some of my paces and mile markers. I tried auto lapping the whole thing because I got the Garmin 165 and it's pretty darn accurate, but at the same time, I wanted to be 100% certain when I was running each mile. But starting off in the beginning of the race, this race is notorious for that beginning downhill. The beginning downhill is about a little less than a quarter of a mile, but it gets you in a groove where you're running super fast and way faster than you should ever be running the entire race. Elevates your heart rate, nerves are through the roof. Pretty much everything bad about a race that you do not want to happen. And I'm not an experienced racer, but coming from myself, this was like the biggest problem for probably about 80% of people there, including myself, as I said. So I started off about a 5:30, and I should not have started off that for about the first 30 seconds. And I was like, all right, let me slow back. So I ended up cruising down the hill. I wanted to kind of stay at a lower pace, probably like a 6:20, because the downhill is going to allow me to use a 6:30, 6:40 effort and still be able to maintain a 6:20 without elevating my heart rate and without really gassing myself. So then I kind of settled in about a quarter mile in. I was about a 6:35, 6:40 pace, which is what I was shooting for the first mile. I wanted the first mile to be my slowest mile. And, I got to about the YMCA, hit the mile marker, hit the lap. I could show you guys if you want. On your Garmin, you can make it so you turn off auto lap and you actually go on there and hit the button yourself every lap, and it'll tell you in your AirPods or whatever you're using for music um, what your time was for that current lap. And you can use that even for different things, not even a mile. If you're just running around track or, you know, a block or something like that, and you just want to track, you know, each lap. But yeah, so I got to about the first mile marker, which was at the local YMCA. And this is when it got a little tougher because it started off on a downhill. Then we kind of got to like a neutral ground for the first mile. We hit a, smooth right going into the YMCA parking lot. But then instead of going to the parking lot area up top, we had a sharp right turn, which is literally, it felt like I was like a rally car. I had to hit it kind of sharp, but then fade out just to maintain some of my speed. And it was at an uphill, which was like the cherry on top. I don't know why they set it up like that, but it's really the only way you can get over there. And then we got to the peak of the hill going up right. And then it was on a slow downhill for about, I want to say, an eighth of a mile. And then we crossed the bridge, went on the dog park trail, and then that was pretty much majority of the second mile was on that dog park. And this was a pretty good run. I feel like I was maintaining, a 6:30 to 6:40, depending on some of the uphills, which was my goal, to utilize the downhills and get lower time with lower effort. And on those uphills, kind of maintain a speed, which is going to gas me a little bit, but it's still going to make it so I have more in the tank for the end. Because I wanted to have, enough for those last 400 to 800 meters where you can just sprint out and give it your all, because, after that, you're done. But around mile 2, they had the little water stations. I do not take any water. I don't know who takes water. That's a serious runner. Maybe some people do. Maybe they're capable of it. But I feel like the pace I'm running, I'm gonna grab the cup. The cup's gonna spill out, and I'm gonna have. And mind you, these are little cups, like little shot glasses. Like, you're not getting much water out of it to begin with. So who am I to get a cup, spill it everywhere, and and then you got thrown on the ground. It's just too much going on, and I'm just trying to keep my head in the race. So I just say, you know what, forget about those aid stations or whatever you want to call those water stations. And I just completely ignored that. Mile two marker hit my watch once again, and this is when it got a little tougher because I live in Connecticut, and Connecticut is known for the worst and most obnoxious weather you could possibly think of. So we had just gotten a snowstorm a couple of weeks ago, and this was pretty bad. On top of all the other ones that we got in February and January and December, so there was a lot of snow that melted, and the race day was pretty nice. It was about 60 degrees, so a lot of snow had melted. And on the dog trail, people use this dog trail all the time, and it's paved, but there's a lot of like holes and divots in the trail, so the water just caked up there. And I'm gonna show you guys. I use the Addy Zeros. These are kind of beat up. I got probably like at least like a couple thousand miles on these things. Like they're literally like molded to my feet. Like I don't know. These are pretty beat up. But they got the mesh where a lot of air can go through, but a lot of water can go through as well. So that was a huge problem. I got my feet soaked. My socks are getting wet, and it was just not that good of an experience going through that path because there were some deep puddles. And getting to the end of the dog trail, going on to about 2.6, 2.5 miles, there was a huge puddle. And it was either you go through a 3-inch deep puddle or you go around and you go through the mud and a little bit of ice. And this was about 5 feet in length. And I was one of the first runners to do it. I think I was around 40 people out of 1,000 at this point, and there was not many people who had went through that. So, it was pretty difficult going through it, and there was still a lot of water caked up in it, and the mud, wasn't patted down enough, and it was still slippery. It was just honestly, I wish they kind of cleaned that up a little bit. I don't know how they would have done it, but maybe a little more maintenance would have helped out because that definitely slowed me down from. I was running about a 642 at that point, and a little higher than I wanted to, but it did not help that case, and it pushed me up to about a 650. At this point, my heart rate was probably about. I'm gonna give you guys the actual metrics and all that, but I think I was sitting about 190 beats per minute, which I'm 20 years old, so that's about 90% of my max heart rate, and I'm sustain like I can sustain that for a decent amount of time. Uh, but yeah, so that puddle really threw me off, threw my pace off, my breath, so my heart rate started to elevate, and this is when like I was so grateful. So when my buddy's Nate, his family was there, and they were kind of sitting at this checkpoint where it was about 2.8, 2.7 miles in, and I just seen them kind of help me out because I was going through it. My heart rate, I think, hit 202, 201. Like I said, I'm gonna give you guys the metrics right here, but I felt like it was like a Looney Tunes. Like my heart was pumping out my chest. Felt like I had a timer. My chest was about to explode and just bump like boom. And I had to slow down to about a 7-minute pace for about 2 seconds because I just needed it. I needed the breath. I needed my heart rate to go down. And most of all, I just really needed it to kind of recuperate so I could push at the end and feel like I had enough because I didn't want to sustain a 640 the whole time. I wanted to, get to low 4, maybe even 350 on the last 400 meters just so I can push and, really release everything because I didn't want to feel like I had anything left in the tank. So we're about 2.9 miles in, and I am still feeling it. But I did get in a little bit of a groove because there were people slowing down, as there always are at the end of the race. Kind of around this point where people are kind of gassing themselves out because they push way too hard at mile 1.5, maybe beginning of 2 miles. And I just started passing people. I passed about 8 people, I'd like to say, at this point. And this was coming in, we were merging back into the road, coming through. And at the end of the race, every year, it is at a steep uphill to the point where it's like, yeah, you're giving it your all, but realistically, the hill kind of takes you back a few minutes in pace because it's just so steep and it really kind of kills the momentum. And the hill's not too long, like you're not running on it for too long, but it's just enough to make it really affect your pace. So I'm coming around the corner and I'm passing one more person, and I just kept my eyes on this one guy this whole time, and he was the goal to beat. And I seen him. Um, I think I ended up finishing maybe like 2 steps in front of him. Uh, I talked to him after the race, and he was kind of with me the whole time, but he kind of branched off around mile 2 and just pushed. But then I ended up catching back up right before the puddle. Uh, but yeah, I pushed. I think I hit about 4 minutes, maybe 4 minute and 30 seconds for a pace at the end. My heart was pumping. Let me tell you. Um, but yeah, I ended up finishing with a 2:59. Oh no, sorry, 20:59. And yeah, that's 59 seconds above what I wanted to. But taking into account, I didn't have as much training as I like, especially since, like I said, I live in Connecticut and the weather is not ideal for running outside during this time. So a lot of this was treadmill work. Running on the treadmill, you have a little bit of assistance that keeps you at a pace, and you don't really get to build, a stable like breathing technique because you're inside. You got maybe like the fans blowing on you from some of the cooler treadmills or whatever that they have, and the treadmill's kind of guiding you, giving you a little more traction. It's not uphill, not downhill, which is very neutral, and there's a lot of variables that you can control on the treadmill. So I feel like I definitely lacked this race because I only was able to run outside 3 times. I think I ran 7 miles 3 weeks prior on a weekend. Another time I had ran outside for about 5 miles, and then maybe one or two more times, after work. But it was cold. Like, let me tell you, it was 30 degrees. I'm sweating. I got a shirt on, a compression tank top, sweater on, 2 pairs of pants. Like, it was not good. Like, it was a struggle. It was a struggle, 100%. But yeah, finishing with a 20:59. I have never even been really that close in numbers wise. I finished about 34th, 35th in the race, and second in my age group. Which, let me tell you, this was 1,000 people there, and there was a lot of experienced runners in my age group, and just in those time periods that I was in, like that 20 to 21 minute, even 19 minute, there was a lot of people in that realm. I'll show you guys a leaderboard and everything, and kind of scroll through. But it was a tough race. Not so much for the course, but so much because, you know, we didn't have too much time to prepare. And like I said, shitty weather out. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, but terrible weather out. And it was really difficult to train outside and get prepared. And I did not get that much sleep. I definitely should get out a lot more sleep. But yeah, looking back, I think training outside, um, sleep, and just maybe running the course that I'm going to try to break a sub 20. Um, I did not train this course. I have run it, like I've ran it before, but never with the intention of, getting good times and filling out the course. It was just really by accident because small town, there's not many places to run. So I would really just run that loop, but never at the pace that I should have. And I never had the intention of trying to keep a good pace and imitate race time. So looking back, I definitely would have tried to run the course if there was better weather, just to get an idea of that downhill, like how fast do I take that downhill? Or do I take it slower? Do I take it faster? Do I, take it steady and try to utilize that pace all the way through the first mile? And some of the turns and stuff I definitely could have worked on. There's some things you can't control, the weather, the puddles, little things like that. But I definitely could have tuned up the race a little more, and definitely tuned up my body in the sense of getting used to being outside and acclimated. But nutrition wise, I think, I wasn't feeling full for the race, but I was feeling like I had enough fuel in the tank, but not too much weighing me down. Uh, I feel like I did stretch properly. I heard some things about there's like the static hold stretching, which is like, you're just holding down, reaching down or whatever. And then there's the kind of, more active stretching where you're, swinging your leg or whatever, or however you want to say it, but it's more active moving stretching. I'm not too sure which is better before the race, so I just did both of them. And I kind of ruled out, my girlfriend bought me a little massage thing, so I kind of sit on that, put it on my legs, heats up. It's nice. I did that before the race, and I think that had me feeling loose. But like I said, I definitely should have warmed up a little bit more. I was just nervous that I was gonna, start digging into some of my race time, power, and effort. So uh, I just did not run as much as I should have. But looking back, I should have had my heart rate a little higher than I wanted to, just so that it wasn't so much of a shock when I started running. But that being said, 20:59 is not terrible. Not terrible for the preparation that I did do and the preparation I didn't do. Looking forward, I think I can hit a sub 20. I am a little on the heavier side, I guess, for runners. Most people my height, at least, are probably like 160, 170, and I didn't, jokes aside. Um, but yeah, it's really hard to sustain a high pace, especially with the size that I am and how much muscle I have in my body. Uh, but it is possible. There are people out there that are doing it, so I feel like I can be an exception and do it also. Um, Nutrition wise, I am going to be eating more because I do want to be running more. I'm filming this on Wednesday at, you can see it, 12:53 at night. This is not good. I need to get my sleep schedule right. But if I see it on my eyes, I do need to start running more. I ran 5 miles. Oh no, sorry, 4 miles on Monday, and then yesterday, Tuesday, I ran 7.4. Now, I know those are pretty crazy numbers, especially after running 5K, but I feel like I need to push myself in order to build that endurance. So it's like I can think in the race, dude, I've ran 10 miles, I ran 7 miles. Like, this is nothing. I got so much more in the tank. And it's going to kind of help me keep a pace outside that is reasonable so I can spend more time outside without really gassing myself. Like, what is the point of running a 5K every time outside, full strength, full power, when, you're really not gonna, you're gonna plateau a lot sooner, I feel like. So I try to keep a lot more easy and long runs in my workout routine, just spend more time outside while I can, because we only have so many nice days out in Connecticut. It's terrible. And I think I'm gonna do that until the weather gets nicer, and then slowly start, doing some tempo runs, doing some, like, I kind of do easy runs right now, but more easy runs, maybe a little less long runs, and maybe try like one race time run. Um, I might be doing a race this weekend on Saturday, or Sunday, but I'm not too sure because I do want to run a hefty distance this weekend. I'm shooting for maybe 10 miles. Uh, but I do for sure have a 5K May 9th, which is pretty far out, but that gives me plenty of time to prepare, get my body right. I still want to be training, weight lifting wise, and I don't want to burn myself out because when I run those far distances, I'm a bigger dude, so I'm burning 1,000 calories. I gotta keep my diet up. I gotta like, I really gotta work on that. We're just gonna chat GPT it out here because we don't got no coaches. But yeah, so pretty much looking forward, my training is going to change a little bit. Just spend more time outside, less time on the treadmill because I hate the treadmill. You're staring at a wall, running on rubber, no breeze or nothing. You're just kind of sitting there. So it's not ideal for, we're not running a 5K on the treadmill. We're running outside. So might as well train outside. But yeah, so like I said in the beginning, I'm new to this, but I'm going to stay as transparent as I can because, most people that both weightlift and run are just regular people. They work a regular job like myself, and, I don't have a bunch of money to be just focusing on running and focusing on weightlifting. Like, we got to spend energy and time somewhere else. So I'm just going to be as transparent as I can with my training schedule, my eating, my sleeping, and just overall my lifestyle, trying to get a sub 20. So yeah, appreciate it, and see y'all later.